creating a membership site is, believe it or not, rather easy, though it might not be as simple per se. But this video is all about the high-level planning and ideas of doing so, and further videos will be about the details and nitty-gritty pieces of each. So let's jump straight in because there really is a lot to do. This video is really for the people who are creating digital courses and digital access sites and memberships and things like that. This is not for you if you're creating a box subscription service, a physical thing, or a one-off product or course type thing. This is probably not a video for you. But if you're creating something recurring, this is kind of who this video is for. So there are generally three things that you do want to focus on. One, of course, is content. And then two is the user levels or roles or something like that you want to plan out and have in your offering or offerings. There's plural. And the third one would be the community aspect of this. So something you might want a community or you might not. So from there, though, you can start planning out further things such as goodies and freebies. You might want access to additional third-party content or affiliate sales. And then you also kind of want to start planning out what other things you might want to upsell, downsell, cross-sell, and give access to based on timing and all these things. And then if you have any recurring events, meetups, recurring content, digital meetings, recurring webinars, seminars, and things like this, you want to plan all these things out. And then internally, and I know I'm going fast, and I'll get to these pieces in just a second, but internally, you do definitely want to plan out the money and the profit side of these things, though it's also very important to plan out the cost of these things. What does it cost you to host all of this thing, create all of this thing, and manage all of these things? Because your costs are a part of running a business, which is something a lot of people forget, that there are costs associated with doing business. So plan all that out too. And then, of course, schedule out things. How are you going to schedule all the content creation, management of these things? Are you available, or is the team available to create all these things? And then are you going to automate these things or have processes for these things? You should probably plan out what's going on or not going on, because you need to, well, suffice it to say, if you're going to do everything manually, it's going to take a lot of work. So you really should put at least some sort of automations or systems in place to help work these things for you, such as an onboarding process. But that's a conversation for another time. But the other thing is related to automations is the tech stack and the integrations and whatever tools you might be using to make all this work. And it's a real question of, well, if you're hosting your own thing like on WordPress, well, that's one thing. If you want to host it on a platform that does a lot of this for you, does it do all of it, some of it, does it do some things you want, some things you don't, so you have to bring another tool? Plan these things out. Now, it's not to say you can't pick one tool and then finagle things together, put things together to make them work. You can, and you probably should. For example, WordPress is a great example of this thing. You can do anything and everything, but you have to then figure out anything and everything. So plus and minus of each. So now let's kind of go back, not in reverse order, but I guess from the top. So what should you plan for content? Content in and of itself is, well, depending who you are, it might be the easy thing or it might be the hard thing. Me personally, writing things is very, very hard. So I do things with video, and if I need to put it into writing, then I do a video and then transcribe it. But you have to plan out your content. What is your initial content going to be? And do you have to schedule any of it out? So while you might think, okay, well, I'm going to do the MVP thing. I'm going to start selling it and hope for the best. There is a time and a place for this thing, but if you're planning out a proper membership site, you really should plan out your initial content and get it done first, at least some of it, and then build your membership site from there. So you should have a plan for how it's going to look like, what type of content you're going to do, how is it going to be distributed and put out to your members, how are they going to access it, and all these things. And of course, the schedule of what you're going to put out, when, how much, and what cost, which brings me to roles and users. At a certain point, you're going to say, well, I just want, if you say, by the way, if you're going to say, I just want one level, great. That part kind of takes care of itself. You can have your admin users, your staff, then that's one, and then people who access, period, right? That's pretty easy. But what if you have multiple levels, such as people who pay recurringly versus one time, versus bronze, silver, gold levels, platinum levels, extra mega or super awesome big levels? I don't know. But plan these things out. Do you want one level or multiple levels? And what should be in each of these levels, and how do they relate or not relate? Does the platinum level get access to the community aspect, which we'll get to in a sec, and bronze doesn't? Or does bronze only get the community level and none of the other member content? I don't know. Plan this out so you know that once you launch it and start building it out in whatever tech stack you pick, you can get it done pretty easily because you have the plan and know exactly what's going to go where. Which now brings me to the community aspect. This one is a really curious one because you don't need it per se. If your membership site really is just content, courses, deliverables per se, tangible type things, I don't mean physically tangible, I mean it could be digitally tangible, then that's one piece. You don't need a community aspect per se. Though it can be a good idea to have one whereupon you give people a place to talk, communicate with fellow members. And a lot of people do this. They sell a course and then they have an additional Facebook group or a forum or whatnot to give people, students, members, a place to talk with each other and learn from each other in this super VIP group type thing. And you can structure it however you want. It could be a VIP group or an everybody group or something in between. You pick. Now, in terms of the actual content, this is kind of where I told you the quick additional things, the freebies, the other resources, the additional tools you might give them, the third-party affiliate things you might bring in, co-hosts, additional info, upsells, downsells. You should plan these things out to a reasonable degree. If you don't have a lot of time and want to get these things done, all of these extras are extras, and you don't have to get them done now, and that's okay. But you can and probably should at least reason to a certain degree, and what that certain degree is, that's up to you. Plan out what you might want to eventually add. For example, I'm creating a course on how to use a certain project management system. Cool. And I'm already planning what other additional upsells I want. What, for example, they have the initial purchase is the course itself. No more, no less. You get the course, one level. That's what I've planned so far to get these things out fast. But the upsell eventually is going to be, I can help you set this up on a one-on-one. The upsell from that is we can do weekly training. The upsell from that is potentially a custom project. So I'm planning these things out so that as I structure the course, I can be nudging people along to, hey, if you want these additional things, you can get it. And by the way, the upsell doesn't always have to be right in the beginning when they purchase. The upsell can be further along in the relationship. And that's what I'm currently planning. And because I have this plan, I know how to start structuring things appropriately, where I have to put certain sales pieces, content, and all these things to make sure it actually works reasonably well. A fun thing, though, is if you have any recurring type content, and I'm just calling it recurring type content, but it could be, for example, as simple as a weekly webinar. You jump on a Zoom call or even a Google Meets call, doesn't matter, or even a phone call, and you talk about things. You talk about the latest news, you talk about the real estate market, you do Q&A, hot seats, whatever it might be. Do you need to do this? Absolutely not. Could you? Of course. It is a great value add. And depending on what you're selling, it might be a very darn good value add. If you are the Bill Gates, Elon Musks of your industry, why not offer them monthly, yearly, quarterly, weekly, daily, whatever it might be, upsell to access to you on a group call where they have to pre-ask the questions and you'll answer them live or whatever it might be. You might even just have pre-recorded webinars weekly, whatever it might be. Point being, plan these things out so that you know then, which brings me to one of the internal items, you have to know your availability to do these things. If you say, I'm going to do 10 pieces of content a week, but then you have your regular job and then you have to create the regular content and then you have to launch this, do that, manage people, you might not realistically have the resources personally to do all of this thing. Maybe some of your team does. And if you do, now you know, hey, well, I can put this stuff to the team to do, create, and put out. But if you don't know what you're going to be putting out and you don't know the schedule, well, you're going to be kind of SOL. So know what your schedule is going to be and how much content you're putting out so that you can schedule things out realistically. That's the important part, because if it's not realistic, you're not going to be getting things done and you're going to get overwhelmed. So realistically plan things out, so know your availability. And speaking of knowing, know your money. Because if, for example, you're planning to, and let's say you have some data already from your sales, and let's say you're getting, I'm going to pick something easy. Let's say you're getting $300 a month from your low-end sale. Well, how much is running this thing costing you? Do you have any upsells to help cover the fees of creating this content? Video, for example, is a high value, high production, and it kind of takes a while to make, right? So is your time being spent properly to create all this content for the money that you're getting back? Because if you take, let's say, if you're doing a the 30-minute videos and you do 5 30-minute videos a day to kind of schedule them out like I do. I do my videos on Mondays. If you schedule these things out, but it takes you X amount of time and then you get zero profit, zero growth, zero nothing out of it, might not be worth your time and effort. Depends on what you're doing. So know what your money is. So meaning that means the income that you're getting, planning to get, and what you're estimating you're going to grow and how you're going to grow, but also how your expenses are going to grow with it, which means if you're using something like WordPress, what are your hosting fees? What plugins are you using? How much is that going to cost you per month? How much is it going to cost you in development time, management time, maintenance time? If you're using a third-party system to do it all for you, what does that cost you monthly, yearly, whatever it might be? Does it have all the tools you might need? What do you need to bring in that's going to cost you more, et cetera, et cetera? Because then you know what your profit and losses are, and you can adjust accordingly. And then, of course, then there's the schedulings, integrations, the automation, the integrations, and the resources on how to put all these things together, because not every system's going to do everything. WordPress by itself doesn't do much. So you can add plugins, and then to those plugins, you can add other automations and tools and things, but you should plan these things out. For example, I'm using a specific course platform for my project management course, and it does a lot of things, but one thing it does not do well is email automation and tracking in a certain way because they don't have certain workflows that I need to get working. So I have another tool for that. And I need to plan how I'm going to connect that list and the actions inside that system into my mailing list so I can email people at appropriate steps. Did they watch the lessons? Did they not watch the lessons? Did they purchase but not purchase the upsell? Etc., etc. You should plan a lot of these things out. And which things to plan, we'll go through those in another video, because that's it for today's video. We're just talking about the high-level things you need to plan. So there's a potential lot to plan. Start planning them out bit by bit. You're not going to get everything perfect, and that's okay. Plan out what you can. Get started with a reasonable plan. Get some money, get some data, and then plan more, schedule more, and all these fun things. So that's it for today's video for Mornings for Visionaries. If you have any questions about at the high level of creating a membership site, let me know in the comments, and I'd love to see what you guys have done with your own membership sites. See you next time. Bye.